بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين الحبيب المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته الكرام المنتجبين. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, may all the peace and the blessings be upon all the prophets, especially the greater prophet of Islam, and upon his purified progeny and the believers of his companions. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, may the peace and the blessings of God be upon you as well. I hope and pray that you are doing great and enjoying these beautiful and wonderful days and nights of this great month of Ramadan. May Allah protect you from all evil. So we continue with our study. Today we will start with verse 42, chapter 22, Surah al-Hajj. I read the Arabic and then Muhammad Rada will read the English. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإن يكذبوك فقد كذبت قبلهم قوم نوح وعاد وثمود. In fact, I read the next two other verses because they are basically in the same line. So I read 43 and 44 as well, and Muhammad Rada will translate all these three verses. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وقوم إبراهيم وقوم لوط وأصحاب مدين وكذب موسى فأمليت للكافرين ثم أخذتهم فكيف كان نكير.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And if they consider what you say as fake, so did before them the people of Noah and the tribes of Ad and Thamud, and the people of Abraham and the people of Lot. First I gave, as well as the dwellers of Midian, and Moses was denied. First I gave respite to all the unbelievers, and only after that I seized them. See how my response was.
So the Prophet ﷺ and also early Muslims met a lot of rejection from pagans and even followers of other faiths. They denied them, they accused the Prophet of falsehood, and at times it was also a violent resistance. They used force and violence against the Prophet and against Muslims, early Muslims. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here tells the Prophet, you are not alone in this struggle. The fight against you is not something new, not the first time happening in history. So the Qur'an is giving a list of prophets that all of those were met by rejection, accusation of falsehood, and at times with a violent response as well. So the Quran starts with the Prophet Noah. He was denied, he was rejected and accused of falsehood. Then the Quran talks about two Arab tribes, Ad and Thamud. Ad was a tribe who lived in the southern part of Arabian Peninsula, most probably in what is known today as Oman. Their capital was known as Aram. They prospered at a certain time. They were engaged in trading. But of course, they rejected their Prophet Hud, who went to them. And he was one of them, and he preached the oneness of God, the faith, but they rejected him. And the next tribe is Thamud. Thamud also lived in the Arabian Peninsula, but in the northern part. Today, this is in the area of the border between Saudi Arabia and Jordan. Their city today is known as Medina Saleh. It's still there. The ruins is still there. It's a touristic landmark. Tourists may go and see the ruins, and they are very amazing, in fact. Their prophet was a Prophet Saleh. Peace be upon all the prophets, upon our prophets, and upon all of them. They rejected the Prophet Saleh. And then the verse 34 talks about the people of Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him and upon our prophet. Prophet Ibrahim first lived in his hometown Ur in southern Iraq today, in Mesopotamia. Then he migrated toward other regions. He preached there. He talked to his own family, his father or uncle. But again, they persecuted him, and he had to leave that area with his wife, Sarah, and his nephew, Lot, who also became Prophet Lut, who also became a prophet later. And also he is mentioned in this verse, the people of Ibrahim and the people of Lut, peace be upon them both. And then it talks about the dwellers of the city of Midian. Midian was another city prospering at the time. The prophet there was Shu'aib, Prophet Shu'aib. His name is mentioned in the Qur'an as well. This city apparently was in southern Jordan today, what is known as southern Jordan today. There are certain ruins. We're not sure if these ruins belong to this city or not, but most probably this city was in southern Jordan. They also accused their prophet of falsehood. Prophet Musa, alayhi salam, he was denied as well. But the Quran does not say by his own people. Of course, those who rejected him were Pharaoh and his followers, the Egyptians. He was denied. And then, so the Quran tells the prophet, if you've been rejected and accused of falsehood, you are not alone, and you are not the first one. There is a long list of the prophets before you who face the same resistance. And the Quran mentioned a few. Many other prophets face the same treatment from their tribes and people. Prophet Jesus, peace be upon him, was also accused of falsehood as well. So the Quran is giving encouragement, support, to the prophet, giving this to the prophet and telling him you are stepping in a path, you are moving in a path that generates resistance and accusation of falsehood. But look, what happened to previous nations? Look at their faith. They all perished. They all perished after what God says, ثُمَّ أَمْلَيْتُ لِلْكَافِرِينَ, after I have given them ample of time, a lot of opportunities to contemplate, to think, but they rejected all these opportunities. They rejected the faith. Of course, they perished later, and now you can see how much God has rejected them as well. So this is a lesson for everyone, including nowadays and throughout history, those who are men and women of faith, who face rejection, who face accusation of falsehood. They are all moving and walking in the line of prophethood, following the prophets, and if they face the same resistance, this is very natural. This is this has happened before. They need to be patient and continue with what they do, and have a trust in the support of God, because God says at the end they will prevail and the others will be losers. All right, verse 45. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. فكأي من قرية أهلكناها وهي ظالمة فهي خاوية على عروشها وبئر معطلة وقصر مشيد.
How many townships have we destroyed for persisting in injustice, leaving them in ruin and deserted wells and lofty but empty palaces?
So God tells the prophet, look what happened to previous nations. Where are they now? What they have left? They only left deserted cities, ruins actually, ruins of big and small cities, ruins of forts and castles and towers, and empty wells, abandoned wells, all of that, and even huge mansions and castles, but they are all empty. This is what they left. And why this happened to them, the Quran tells us. What is the reason behind this, that those nations perished and then they left all these ruins? The Quran says, وكأي من قرية أهلكناها وهي ظالمة. They have perished because they committed injustice. This is very important and crucial for everyone to know, that those nations, communities, cities, or even individuals, people as individuals or as communities, they got to be perished because of their own acts of injustice. ظالمة. Not once, not twice, they persisted in their actions of the injustice, continued on their wrongdoing. The Quran says, ظلم, wrongdoing and injustice, will impact its own wrongdoers, the person himself who commits this act of wrongdoing. He or she or the community will perish. And this is not a punishment. This is another point that we need to understand, brothers and sisters. This is an outcome of their injustice. This is very important. Again, this is not a punishment. They have perished not because of a punishment, but because this is an outcome of their own injustice. Let me give you an example. When someone who is a drunk, I always use this example. When someone who is under the influence of intoxication drives a car and then gets involved in an accident, what is this? Is this an outcome of this person driving under influence, or this is a punishment? Of course, this is an outcome. And this is an outcome of his or her irresponsible act. Same with texting while driving. This could, lead to serious accidents, serious injuries, and even death. This is an outcome. This is not a punishment. And this is what the Quran also uh, uh, reminding us the outcome of injustice on an individual level or on community level is that it will impact the wrongdoer or the wrongdoers. He or she will perish, and everything they will leave behind will be ruins, ruins for others to come and learn from that. God is reminding us of the fate of previous nations and communities who persisted in their injustice. This includes believers and non-believers. It's not only for the non-believers. Even a believer, a Muslim, if he or she or a community of Muslims who commit injustice toward toward one another or toward others, that will be their fate. So this is not limited for the previous nations. This is also applies to everyone who commits injustice. This is a general rule. It doesn't matter who does it. If somebody does injustice, eventually injustice continues in injustice. Eventually that would come back to him, and he or she would be impacted by the outcome of his or her actions. Verse 46, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. أفلم يسيروا في الأرض فتكون لهم قلوب يعقلون بها أو آذان يسمعون بها فإنها لا تعمى الأبصار ولكن تعمى القلوب التي في الصدور. Translation.
Have they not traveled throughout the land, letting their hearts gain wisdom and their ears to hear the truth? For indeed it is not the eyes that grow blind, but the hearts which are in their chests that grow blind.
Haven't they traveled in the land? God is telling the prophet to ask those pagans. Haven't they traveled in the land? And they indeed they haven't traveled because they were traders, they were merchants, they would travel for business and for commerce. The Holy Quran invites everyone to be educated, to learn. And one way of learning in the Quran is traveling. Today, traveling is one way of vacationing, leisure, and relaxation, but not in the Quran. Well, in the Quran could be also, but in addition to that, the Quran looks at the travel as a method of education, to be educated. Educated about what? About the history, about the civilization, about the traditions and customs and cultures of other nations and communities. To go and learn what happened to them, learn from them for a variety of purposes. Quran says, we created you in different tribes and nations, so you get to learn from one another, to know one another. لِتَعَارَفُوا. So one reason is that we get to know one another as civilizations, as cultures, as traditions. So when we understand one another, we create peace rather than war. So this is one purpose of learning. And the other purpose of learning from other nations and communities and even individuals, to learn from their success and their failures as well. See what they have done understand their experience, what they have done, and learn from the success, adopt the success. You know, we can learn from the success and practice it and avoid their failures as well. So this is something that Quran recommends for everyone. Next time you and I travel, and I believe in these conditions, many people are looking forward to, you know, travel one time after this pandemic ends. Maybe a priority of our travel should be to learn something from other nations. Go see their museums, learn about their history, see their authentic cultures. You know, beside living in fancy hotels and luxury hotels and traveling through luxury means, but we are required also to spend time in parts of their those nations to learn from their authentic culture, how they live, and especially areas of poverty. So we thank God for what He has blessed us with. So the Quran says, tell the pagans, happen they travel in the earth, in the land, to see the fate of other nations, previous nations, what happened to them when they rejected the faith, when they rejected the truth, and they committed injustice. Of course, the Quran says they have seen all of that because they have a trouble. Their job was in traveling and, you know, in commerce. So they have seen what happened to previous nations. But the Quran, in fact, raised a very interesting point. He says, they are blind, not because a physical blind, not their eyes they are blind or were blind. No, they could see. Their hearts, their reasoning power are blind, that they, in fact, they cannot grasp the wisdom, or they cannot conclude what happened and why it happened to previous nations. Quran calls on a blind, not somebody who's on somebody to be a blind, not a physical, not someone who uses his physical eyesight. No, that's in the Quran is not called a blind. A blind, the Quran says, those who are blind in the heart. He uses the word إنما تعمل قلوب. The hearts get to be فإنها لا تعمل أبصار ولكن تعمل قلوب التي في الصدور. No, vision does not go blind. It is the heart. It is the hearts that are in the chests that they go blind. Yes, indeed. You see, even today, and this is throughout history, you see some people who see the reality in front of them, but they deny the facts and they deny the conclusion. An example is global warming. You know, you can feel the global warming. In fact, these days that we are basically locked down and stay at home, if you read the media, they talk about how the earth is healing because we are, I'm sorry, because we are consuming less fuel. We are consuming less as we are staying at home in variety of ways, especially in fuel. And about 2 days ago, I saw an article about how the zone, the ozone, I'm sorry, the ozone hole in the North Pole now is no more hole, and it's already went to the normal situation. This is because a lot of human activities have been reduced. So today we can understand and see that when we reduce our activities, global warming is getting less. A lot of people deny this fact. And this is just one example of people seeing a lot of facts. They see it by their eyes, but they deny it by their hearts and their minds. The Quran uses the word qulub, which means hearts, in Arabic, and especially in Quran, in ancient Arabic and in the Quran. Heart is a center for intelligence and reasoning, for understanding. And also it is a center for emotions and feeling as well. It's reflected, it's presented to be as a center for both understanding and reasoning and for emotions. So this is why the Quran uses the word hearts in many places in reference to reasoning power or in reference to emotions. Yes, and now the final verse for tonight, verse 47. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. ويستعجلونك بالعذاب ولن يخلف الله وعده وإن يوما عند ربك كألف سنة مما تعدون.
Yet they ask you to hasten the punishment. God will not fail in his promise. Surely a day in the count of your Lord is like 1,000 years in your count.
Pagans used to come to the Prophet ﷺ, and in a sarcastic way, they would say, "What happened to the punishment? When is it coming? We want it. Bring the punishment and bring what you claim to happen to us." The Quran responds that this is the promise of God. It will happen on its due time. Timing in the count of God is different than timing in your count. You might think a punishment is taking very long to happen, but not in the count of God. This will happen eventually for those who do injustice. They commit injustice and crimes. They will face punishment. This is the promise of God. This will happen at the due time, not at the time of your on your own choose. So this is the response to their claim that they wanted to see punishment falling on them very soon. The verse brings a very important and scientific facts, brothers and sisters. It says, وَإِنَّ يَوْمًا عِنْدَ رَبِّكَ كَأَلْفِ سَنَةٍ مِمَّا تَعُدُّونَ. One day in the count of God is it is like 1,000 years of your count. So the Quran, 14 centuries ago, told us about this fact that measurement of time on earth is different than measurement time in other parts of the universe, and it's different than measurement of time in the hereafter. And this is just one example. You know, one day in the count of your God is equal to 1,000. And 1,000 is a metaphor of too much, too much. So it might not be specifically 1,000, but it's a metaphor of so many, so many. So this, in fact, resolves a lot of confusion that some people have raised about many things. For example, the creation of the universe. God says in the Qur'an that God created the universe in 7 days. This has resolved the confusion. It does not mean 7 days of 24 hours. No, it's the 7 stages of time. And the stages of time could take thousands, in fact, millions of years. Same with the hereafter. The verse, the Quran refers to timing the hereafter and says, one day might be equal to 50,000 years of yours. في يوم كان مقداره 50,000 سنة. 50,000 years of, so counting of time is, now science has proved this. Now we know that time on Earth is different than time of other planets or stars, and of course different than time in the year after. With this, we come to the end of tonight Quran study. If you have any question or comment, please raise them now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Imam.
Thank you. God bless you. Thank you.
Shamasada.
In the same vein, when we talk about Rabb al-Alameen,
Yes.
what is the definition that you understand for Alameen? The God of the worlds. Are we talking about the world in terms of different universes, the world in terms of what was sent by God to earth over millennia? What is the definition for that?
So commentators have give different opinions to what this term means. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. One could means the Lord of this life and the Lord of hereafter, because that's two different words, two different universe, if you may call it, two different worlds. So this is one, could be one meaning. The other could be the Lord of the earth and other parts of the universe, the heavens, the angels, the jinn also. We believe that, you know, there are other creations called jinn, as the Quran the Quran have said so. So we humans, we live on earth. This is our own world, and there are many other worlds, whether in this universe or in the hereafter, and they are all, you know, God is the Lord of all of them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, mighty Allah, send your blessings and peace upon Muhammad and upon his progeny. We ask you, Almighty Allah, to protect everyone. Keep everyone safe, healthy, and especially those who are fighting against this pandemic, those who go to hospitals to give treatment and healing to others. Those who help others in this time, Almighty God, we ask you to support them. And those who are facing challenges at this time, we ask you, God, to help and support them all. We ask healing for the ill. We ask mercy for those who passed away. And we ask protection for those who are still alive. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you very much.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
Thank you so
Assalamu
much.
alaikum.
Salam
Thank you
alaikum.
Ali, very much. We'll see
Thank
you tomorrow,
you.
inshallah.